Right, what we're going to go over now is what is required to make a good magmatic ore deposit, with a focus on the requirement of the R factor and what the R factor is. So, uh, broadly, what the R factor is a ratio of the silicate magma to the sulfide melt. So the silicate magma contains the metals, and what we want to do is concentrate it into the sulfide melt. So when we have sulfide droplets within a magma, it can scavenge the valuable platinum group elements, nickel, other siderophile and chalcophile elements that get concentrated in that sulfide melt. So the way to get a lot of those metals into the sulfide melt is have a relatively small amount of sulfide melt compared to a relatively high amount of silicate magma. So other things that are also important listed here are things like the partition coefficient, so how much those metals want to get into that sulfide melt. But really the ratio between the silicate melt and the sulfide melt is what we call the R factor. And this is a quick diagram sort of showing that. So we have our sulfide liquid on the bottom, and the more silicate melt that flows over that sulfide magma, will the sulfide melt will be able to scavenge more and more metals from that silicate magma that's going over top of it. So the more silicate magma to sulfide melt we have, the higher the R factor, so the more valuable the deposit. So this is showing two different geometries of having new magma intruding into a more evolved magma chamber. There's two options here. Either the new magma can be more dense than the evolved magma it's going into, which is that top one, where it's just going to pool at the bottom. There's not going to be as much interaction with that existing magma chamber. The other one is the plume model, where the new magma is less dense and it's going to flow up to the top. The plume model will create more interaction between the two magmas, so any immiscible sulfide melt that forms from this interaction is going to be able to mix more fully and encounter more of that silicate magma, so it will have a higher R factor. Again, the higher R factor, this is more of an effective R factor, is the amount of silicate melt that a single sulfide droplet is going to see as it goes around this magma chamber. So again, it's the plume model that has the higher R factor because there's greater mixing between the magma and the sulfide droplets that form from it than with the fountain model where the new magma just pools on the bottom, so we get less interaction with that melt. Next, we're going to have look at an example of these two end member possibilities using oil and water. The oil is going to have food coloring mixed in it, and it's actually a salt water, so it's even more dense. That also has food coloring, and we'll see how much food coloring is pulled from the oil, that's going to be our example of PGEs, and brought into the brine phase, whether we have a vigorous mixing versus a pooling on the bottom. Okay, now we've got on the left our pink food coloring, and on the right it's more of an orangey color, a little hard to see here, like orangey purple. On the left, we're adding slowly the blue brine into the bottom of the melt, whereas on the right, we added it, now we're giving it a shake. So we're showing greater mixing in this example. So let's give that a shake as we finish filling up the one on the left. Now, what we're going to do is leave these and have a look at which one is more effective at pulling the food coloring out of that oil phase, which is on the top. So here we are, we've waited a little bit, and now we're doing a time lapse one, and you can sort of see that the color that's now purple is starting to be pulled out of the one on the right, while the one on the left is unchanged. So this is because we have those droplets of salt water, which is our immiscible sulfide melt, that is grabbed the food coloring, which is our PGEs, and it's pulling it down to the bottom. And if we have look up close, we can see that the blue is still blue, but on the left, but on the right, we've got a purple color, and that's been pulling due to that same blue water pulling the uh, the food coloring from the oil.